This episode of Chicago's Bravest Stories is brought to you by Sports and Ortho Physical Therapy. So, Steve, I understand you have a sports and ortho memory that you'd like to share.
I do. Just recently, I actually suffered an injury. It was a chronic injury from firefighting and paramedicing. I tore my shoulder and separated my AC joint right at the beginning of the pandemic.
How you feel right now?
I feel great.
Can you lift your hands over your shoulder?
I can do all of that. But what was crazy was at the time, they weren't doing shoulder surgeries. So I did not know what I was going to do until I was presented with the option of going to sports and ortho physical therapy.
So you theoretically could have been out for a long time.
I could have been out for a very long time, and I was told that the shoulder surgery I was presented with was going to keep me out a very long time as well.
So you would have automatically lost your spot
Yes.
and potentially be out for a long time. There'd be a loss of income as well for like overtime and what have you, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So what kind of things did Dahlia have you do?
So Dahlia set me up with one of her therapists, Claire from England, and Claire beat me up for 3 months straight.
Well, you had it coming, Steve. Yeah.
I did, but we did all kinds of stretches. I'll tell you what, I've had other injuries where I've went to other facilities outside of the job that I'm currently at, and they did not do the hands-on manipulation, the cupping, the stretching, the massages, the massage machine they were using on me, all sorts of stuff. Needling, Claire did some needling on me, and I'll tell you what, that needling, it was like, I can't explain it to you, but it definitely, like, I could instantly feel, it was instant gratification when she was doing the needling on me.
So how long did it take to get you back?
So I did 3 sessions a week for approximately 3 months, a little under 3 months, and I didn't need to have surgery. I rehabbed that shoulder back, and it was great. And on top of all of it, I had a thing going on at home where I couldn't be exposed to the virus or multiple people because of the virus. And Dahlia had gone out of her way to schedule me so that I would not have those experiences and I could do a lot of the rehab by myself with Claire. And Dahlia went above and beyond to accommodate me like she does, and she goes above and beyond for all of her clients. And I'm truly grateful to her and Sports and Ortho Physical Therapy.
Well, there you have it. Living testimony by our own Chicago's Bravest Story, Steve. Sports and Ortho, you can look them up on sportsandortho.net.
I mean, they got a location everywhere, so.
For all you up north, Edison Park for sure, Mount Greenwood for you south.
Brand new Oak Lawn, I believe.
So sportsandortho.net. Okay, well, welcome to Chicago's Bravest Stories. We have a special roll call for you today. We actually have an in-studio roll call. My guest today is Al Medina from the Chicago Fire Department. Al has a unique position with the fire department as he runs the sim lab for the fire department, and it's a sim lab that's actually utilized, and I'll let Al get into that, but thanks for being here, Al. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. This is a pleasant surprise, actually.
You were actually coming here to drop off some forms for me, and I kind of put you on the microphone. I thought, hey, why not every department has a sim lab, correct?
That's right.
So, I alluded to the fact earlier that your sim lab is utilized by other departments and other agencies. I know you got something special going on this week and next week. What other entities utilize the sim lab?
We have the SWAT team coming in June. A couple of EMTs we're going to have in June. We're looking to schedule them. We also have, like you mentioned, the FBI coming next week. And we also have UCAN that's going to be doing a unified collaboration of triage.
And what's UCAN?
UCAN is the helicopter, the nurse, the flight nurses.
The flight medics, the flight nurses, they're all going to get their training with you. And I know that the utilization of the sim lab has been put into place now more than ever with the candidates coming on, especially paramedics and the firefighters that are coming on the job. kind of give people who are not familiar with the what a sim lab does, kind of run us through what the sim lab's all about.
Yeah, I mean, we try to check a pulse on everyone that comes in, right? Whether they're coming for the fire side or EMS side, we try to check a pulse on them. What I mean by that is, where'd they come from? What medic school do they go to? What kind of experience do they have? How long they've been a paramedic, things of that nature. And we try to get a pulse on them, and then we take them, through skill training. We could also do, just throw a mannequin in front of them and say, hey, do this to them. But that's not really getting, putting them on the hot plate, so to speak. We want to set up the ambiance, so to speak. We have a bar.
You want to make it more realistic.
Yes. It's not going to be in a controlled environment like the hospital ERs are. We're going to have it, uncontrolled environment. We have actors, we have mannequins that do multiple things that they have to search for, where we don't need an instructor on scene.
Yeah. I know that throughout the years we've had some crazy stories about because it's a fine line from reality to your scenarios. What was the one with the guy with the gun and a candidate?
Oh yeah,
it was with John, right?
Yeah,
tell us that story.
Is that the one where he attacked?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah,
he was attacked, and it was in the setup of the bar. Right?
Well, one of them was in there, and the other one was in the living room.
Okay.
So the scenario is, let me set it up. The scenario is there's a mom with a crying baby. She calls because she's seen the baby choking. So that's the setup. But dad what happens is the crews get on scene, and they think, and they're candidates, mind you, and they think they're trying to do the right thing.
Well, they're used to the paramedic EMT school type scenarios where you just go in your classroom, you set a dummy down and do your assessment, and you just regurgitate what you've learned But when your guys go to the sim lab, like set up, because you have a room for the scenarios that's set up, that's a bar. You have a bedroom, you have a living room, you have a bathroom, like with bathtub and sink, and like it is
fully furnished.
If somebody just blindfolded you, walk in, and you would think you were in somebody's house, right?
Correct.
It is. You guys even like hung pictures and everything like that. So when these guys are going through these scenarios, you really are making it as close to real life as you can. So
yes,
go on, tell.
Yeah. So we have them. We dispatch them, like you said. We don't just lay a dummy. Here's your equipment. Go. We dispatch them from our modular, which is a indoor ambulance. We dispatch them. They bring whatever they need to bring. They want to bring a stretcher. They want to bring a stair chair. Whatever they need to convey and treat. They get there, and it's a crying baby. Mom says, I don't know what's going on with the baby. He wasn't breathing. Obviously, the baby's breathing at that time. Then dad comes in, and he's kind of pissed off because she called the ambulance, and now they get into an argument, and it gets a little sticky.
And the dad in this scenario was another paramedic?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and he actually has a gun on him, but they don't know this. And what happens is he's ignoring the crew. They're trying to calm him down, and they're trying to talk to mom. They're trying to treat the baby. They're trying to do all these things, and at the same time, dad's creeping around the door, and he's now blocking their egress. Right.
So now it's a scene safety issue.
Yeah. Now it's a scene safety. Exactly. And then now they're set up, and now they're like, okay, where do we go from here? And now he starts to argue with them. Dad does, with the crews, and they don't want to argue because they think that's the wrong thing to do, to argue with the patient's parents or whatever. And then it gets really heated where he finally pulls out a gun. And in this case, many of the candidates would get a little afraid and back off. But one of our candidates actually went to go attack the shooter. And it was kind of funny, but not good at the same time, because, if that was a real scenario, he probably would have been killed.
Yeah.
But
I mean, there's your teachable moment, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so you guys abruptly stopped the scenario there.
I actually, it's funny you say that, because I was in the control room watching the whole thing on the screens, and when I seen that, I literally ran out there, ran down the hall, and said, "What are you doing?"
And so what you're talking about is each room is mic'd and cameraed, and you are kind of you're overseeing all of this in your control room. It's like a DJ booth.
Yeah.
Where you have your headphones on and you have the cameras, the screens to see what's going on in each room, and you can actually like provide information from your control room to the scenario.
Yes.
And so you were kind of like the eye in the sky for the scenario.
Yeah.
But I know that you have other stories of like these things getting so like close to real life.
Yes.
That you're freaking people out.
Yeah.
But for my opinion, I'd rather have people freak out in a sim lab and work it out there, kind of work out the kinks, work out. Now you're trying to transition what they're going to do to muscle memory.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting concept because without the sim lab, you can't really get into that mindset that I'm not just doing a scenario for paramedic school or EMT school. You know, it transitions you more into what you're going to do for real life. And you're using live equipment. You're using, if these guys are pushing a med, you know, they're drawing it up out of a syringe and an ampule, and they're actually using the pads and the actual monitor that they use when you guys do your cardiac scenarios. What other things do you guys do? And you had mentioned the inside ambulance. Explain people what that is, because that's a cool thing too, because for the paramedics especially who are working in an ambulance, you're actually in a functioning back of an ambulance that you guys have at the academy, that it's got the captain's seat, it's got the stretcher, it's got and the cabinets are exactly the way the cabinets are laid out inside these city ambulances. So explain that to people.
Yeah, so and obviously it's a little different than an ambulance, the door wise, because obviously you want to see inside there and what they're doing without seeing it like an ambulance where you don't know what's going on back there. It's got a camera on there too. It's got a mic in there as well.
It's like it's got cut in half.
Yeah.
So you can, it's like a stage almost.
Yeah. It's like the patient compartment, you can say. And it's got telemetry in there, all the channels and everything, just like you would have it on the ambulance. It also, when they call from there, it's actually live, meaning it can go into a control room where they'll get me as...
You're the dispatcher.
Correct. I play actually two roles. I play dispatcher and I play telemetry.
Okay.
So when they're dispatching on the radio, I'm in the command room. And when they're calling the hospital, then I turn into telemetry.
Okay. So can anybody, because, you know, we talked about that you do training for FBI has come in and they're going to be coming in this week to do their scenarios and their training, and then they're going to be doing ride time with us. What other agencies come by you?
We've had people from all over the world, literally. We have a wall that Pete Lazar started that says EMS all around the world. And we have the Netherlands. They've been coming for the last 4 to 5 years. They bring like 80 nurse practitioners.
Do the Dutch have ALS ambulances?
They do, but they have a doctor in there.
With every crew?
Yeah, with every crew.
Is it a doctor and a medic, or a doctor, two medics?
It's a doctor, a medic, and an EMT, and or a driver who's nothing. Yeah.
So there potentially 4 guys on that ambulance?
3.
Okay.
But it depends on what that driver and or EMT.
If the driver's trained to that level or not? Okay.
Yeah. But obviously that driver and the EMT is not doing much treatment.
Right.
It's the medic and the
But
doctor.
he could potentially.
Yeah. If he's CPR, if he's certified, I mean, do compressions, he can. Australian, they've come there. Their program is pretty interesting because you have to have a bachelor's to be a paramedic. Yeah, and that changed probably 3 years ago. And the 2 guys that came over, they're the managers.
Are those guys that I met?
Yes.
Those older fellas?
Yes,
those
yes.
guys were awesome.
Yeah, and they got grandfathered into the program.
Did they?
So they didn't have to have their bachelor's. So yeah, those 2 guys from Australia, they were.
Do they push like different crazy types of meds, or are they almost as basic as we are?
I think their medications are different. Nothing too.
They're not Portland like.
No. They're just at the bachelor. That's just a prereq. It doesn't mean that they can push more or whatever their SMOs call for.
Okay. What so let's say that you have somebody who can somebody contact you and say, "Hey, my department wants to use your sim lab."
Yeah.
Could they contact you?
Absolutely. I mean, they can contact me. I'll talk to our director, and I'll see if it's okay. Because Leslie Stein Spencer and Pete Lazar, who started the Sim Lab, they've always said is keep our doors open. Keep our door. We're not hiding anything from anybody. We want whoever wants to come here and whoever wants to if they want to develop their own Sim Lab or see what kind of training we do. We keep our doors open to everyone. If we had some EMT programs, we've had Malcolm students there when they were doing their transition from their old school to the new school. So we've had programs like that come through. So we've had a lot of other departments come through. A couple of chiefs from Wisconsin, they've come down to see how we train just to get an idea. Because they have a big training center up there, but for fire, nothing for EMS. So they want to see what we did for EMS.
I kind of jumped into the SimLab stuff, but how many years have you been with the fire department?
I'm in my 16th year.
16th year?
Yeah, 9 furloughs.
You're 9 furloughs.
Finally.
That's how many years you're on. I'm 9 furloughs.
Yeah, that's it.
Where did you start? Give us a little bit about your background.
Sure.
I know I just jumped right into it because
No,
when you
fine.
walked in, I'm like, hey man, let's talk about the SimLab, but I've kind of gone completely off script of what we actually do here. So
yeah, I always like sharing this with the candidates, especially because they always think that I got this education that that I got my bachelor's, I'm a nurse, I'm all this, but I was an uneducated kid. I didn't get my GED till I was 30 years old. And I went to EMT school the next year, and I went to paramedic school a year and a half after that, and I wanted to be a firefighter initially. But as time went on and as EMS started to eat away at me, I was like, you know what? I'm going to be a paramedic. I'm going to stay a paramedic. And I got hired 3 weeks after paramedic school at Elmhurst Fire Department. And it was great there. I loved it there. Had some great calls there that I still really, stick to my head. And I was there for 2 years, and I was on the city's list. And then within those 2 years, they called me. And, if Elmhurst was paying well, I would have stayed.
yeah.
Not because of the call volume, but just because mentally it was great.
It was nice being on that schedule where you were with the same guys.
Correct.
And you had your own shift, and
Yep.
it gets comfortable out there.
Yeah, gold shift. That's what we were, fire and EMS. That's what I was on, and it was actually really great. Just wasn't paying well.
Yeah.
Once the city made that call, I was in. I left, and been in the city ever since. I was a PIC. I took it after about 2.5 years, close to 3 years. Been a PIC ever since 2008.
Who was your first partner?
Margie Bombin.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And Margie was married to one of our previous guests here, Danny, on the Danny and Jimmy episode.
Yeah.
We had a few whiskeys
Yeah.
that day. So
I thank her for talking to Dan, getting me on the bike team.
yeah.
Yeah. So that was I was nudging, even though I was a candidate. And that memo came out when the first time they started it.
Yeah.
In 2006, I was like nudging her, and she goes, "I'll talk to Danny. And it took me about a year, but I knew they had a crew already, which was fine. But it was great that they gave me a shot.
That was back then. It was one of those who you knew type of
Exactly.
type of details, right?
Yeah, it was.
But there was a badass.
You want to be
detail.
part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I am 100% loving how open it is now, and that we have complete transparency, and anybody with a medical license can come out and do it. And that's actually why you came down today. You had some forms to drop off because we start our bike team training on Monday.
Yeah.
By the time people listen to this, there'll already be people who have been going through that bike team course.
Right.
You and Margie are working.
Yeah.
Anything that stands out to you from your very first day?
I went to Little Village. I was in ambulance 34.
Where you spent most of your time there, right?
Yeah, well, I spent before I took the PIC,
Yeah.
and I was south for those first 2 to 3 years, and 34 those guys were great. Number one in the house, and I know there's a lot of companies that are great, but those guys, each shift, they were together. It was kind of like rare because each shift had their guys were like 10 years plus each one of them.
Yeah.
So they've been together that long, 5 guys on each shift, and I was just like, this is amazing. And they were just great guys. I loved it there. I was at the old house, by the way.
Yeah, I think Mike Manchester was talking about that, and when he got there, he the guy who, when he finally got there, the next junior guy, when he showed up, he was like so happy because he didn't have to carry the pumpkin. He's like, I've been carrying this thing for 20 years, you know?
Yeah, it was definitely a seniority place.
Yeah.
Seniority type. You couldn't go there 5-10 years on. You had to have some time as far as a firefighter goes.
Yeah.
I've probably seen most of my fires, I was on that ambulance. I've probably seen, not kidding you, at least 15 rolling fires.
Yeah.
You know, so it was good there.
So you were there for 2-3 years. You got did you apply? Did you put your name on the list?
I did, only because I got on late. I got on when I was 39.
Yeah.
And I felt like, you know, if it was up to me, I would have stayed at FPM for at least 5 years, you know, just to get my feet wet, you know. But, you know, since I didn't have that time to like, well, if I do it for 5 and I'll be 45, 44 years old, let me take the promotion and see what happens. I didn't know I was going to get called that soon. To be honest, I'll be transparent. I didn't think I was ready, but only because of the actions of the calls I was on. But never got suspended or never got caught, I should say. But you know, but it was definitely a learning curve, and maybe better. You know, I had to know my first call, or my first time I acted up. I wasn't a PIC yet.
Okay.
Was with Tom Simich, and he was a candidate.
Okay.
And we had 0 on our K-tank in day 1 when we walked in. We had state inspections. I don't know if you remember state inspections. They were like 2 hours long, and they went through everything with a fine-tuned coat.
That was the worst, right?
Yes.
When you saw that it landed on your shift.
Yes.
It was the worst.
It was. And, you know, I had the state inspection. Me and Tom had 2 traumatic arrests and a cardiac arrest that day. That was my first day.
Have you ever met Tommy before that day?
No. Well, I knew who he was because back then, I don't know how it is now. I haven't been on the street, but we were tripled up. I had Sergio, who was one of the original on the bike team.
Yeah.
He was there before me. Then I got there, and then Tom Simmons got there, and they moved him. Then they moved his shift finally. But we were tripled up. That's how I got booted out. Because Sergio left, and then it was me there, and then Tom was doubled up, and Tom moved, and then I left the ambulance.
Well, we'd like to thank Illuminated Brewworks for sponsoring this podcast. Thanks, Brian, for the generous donation of craft beer, including Trust, Creeper, Peanut Butter Pony, Astronaut Juice, and what else we got there, Corey?
We got Orange Sunshine too, which is a really, really nice. I'm not a big fruity beer guy, and like this is just a really nice like orangey like summer beer.
It's going to be your new summer beer for sure.
Yeah. It's awesome. And Brian's also got some cool stuff going on over by the brewery. They're actually opening up what do they call it, Vince?
Brew Pub.
Yeah. So he's going to pretty much have his own bar there, which would be awesome. Definitely check that out. That's up on the northwest side.
That's 6186 Northwest Highway, right next to Wine Styles, which is next door. And you can pick up any of these craft beers there. You can pick them up at Binny's now, Norwood Park Wine and Spirits, Beer Temple, Bottle and Cans, Capone's, Toto's, and Rayans.
Again, it's just cool to see that this beer is getting so much attraction that other people are grabbing it too. While he's doing that work, I mean, this guy doesn't stop working. While this guy's like building a bar for all intents and purposes, this guy's making a brand new brew too, right? What's the name of that one?
It's called Brony Double Hop IPA. If you're into IPAs, this is the one that is coming back and it's been in pretty high demand. So Brony is coming back for all you Illuminated Brewworks people. And you can follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and at the very least, take a look at the artwork on these cans. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. We do all this mustache talk. We got this Creeper can. This thing's awesome. So again, make sure to check out Illuminated Brewworks and find out as much as you can about these guys, and definitely give it a try because you're not going to stop once you give it a go.
You have a couple years there. When you took the promotion, you went back to went back to 34?
No, I didn't. I mean, I went there as a
reliever.
I stayed south for a little bit, then I came up north, and I was relief for 8 years. So I've worked with over 100 partners, easily 100.
Has the PIC.
As a PIC.
So as a paramedic in charge, you're just going from different firehouse to different firehouse. Got it. And that was back in the day where we had all the bunker gear.
Yes.
And I mean, so if you're traveling, you had a ton of shit to carry.
Yes.
And that's what sucked about relieving that.
Yeah.
Back now, relieving's not relieving sucks no matter what, but it was even worse back then because you had a shit ton. Because you had to have your bedding, a change of uniform, whatever,
your boots, and all your stuff. But I got so good at packing it that it was so small. I know guys were carrying those hockey bags, and they were like, humongous. And I had it down to a science, man. I even used to ride my bike with a trailer.
Yeah.
And I used to put it in there. If I was like 5 to 10 miles out from the firehouse I was going to, I'd ride my bike there, put everything in that trailer, and I'd go to firehouses. And then, because I didn't want to drive my car 7 miles. I'd rather ride my bike.
Yeah, why not?
So.
All right. So you're relieving. Did you get a spot as a PIC before you came down?
Well, I got mandatory assigned to ambulance 50.
Okay. I think that's
Finally.
the only way people actually get assigned to 50 is you get mandatory.
No one chooses it, right?
Yeah. So in the city of Chicago, if they have a spot that nobody wants to go to and it remains open, you're allowed to pass it up twice. Pass it up in 2 orders before you get mandatory.
Well, I went 8 years, and I was putting in in spots, and
but the spot hadn't been. What's the order here? Like if that passed on it twice, or it basically passed you up twice, and then you got mandatory, right?
I don't know how I got mandatory, to be honest.
Okay.
It was just one day I got a call from the field chief to turn in my airport badge.
Yeah.
And you're heading south. And I was like, what?
And mandatory is by seniority, so the lowest man on the totem pole.
Yeah, it must have been me.
Yeah. So and it's a rough spot. Like some people like it. If you've ever worked down there, and for people listening who aren't familiar with the city, it's an area of the city where there's a ton of courtyard buildings. So you're gonna pull up, and you got to walk a long way just to get to the building where this person's at.
Yeah.
And that doesn't include the conveyance to get them out of that building and then wheel them all the way back.
Yeah.
It's a long day. It's a really long, and it's not a slow spot by any means.
No, it's not. But I do think, if I can mention him, Ed Joseph.
Yeah, of course you can.
Eddie Joseph was, he'd been out, I think at that time, maybe 2 years at that time. He was the FPM there. Great to get around. I mean, I didn't know. All I knew was 730 in Kingston. That's all I knew, southeast side. And if it wasn't for him, I mean, if you're a medic, you're a medic. You can be a medic anywhere. But as far as getting around, I mean, he knew the ins and outs. He knew the cul-de-sacs. He knew where it cut off at the trains. He knew where the angle streets were. So that's a definite plus with Eddie. So I thank him for that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to thank Eddie about. Let's plug his Facebook group. What's his Facebook group called?
I don't know. Ambulance
League
70.
of EMS Professionals.
Oh yeah. That's
that
a
what
new
it is?
group. Yeah, that's I don't know, something like that.
Yeah,
I forgot
and
what it
he's
is.
an alumni for our podcast 2 podcasts ago.
Oh really?
Chavez, they're all at that.
Ambulance 77.
Yeah, they're both from Engine 38's house.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of celebrities over there.
There is. I know. I wish they would have had an ambulance when I was on 34 there. We ran with 38 all the time. 16th Street, we were there after midnight all the time. Because obviously no ambulance was there.
You got to 50, and that's when. How did this transition go down? Because we've had Pete Lazara on the show here, and we didn't really get into too much about the sim lab because he had such a storied history. Like, we couldn't even keep up. Everything led to another Pete Lazara story, and when you talk about the man, the myth, the legend, like
he's the man.
That's Pete Lazara right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we didn't even get to the fact that he helped develop this whole sim lab thing.
Yep.
So Pete gets promoted. They don't allow him to stay in that position at that rank So how does the transition go to get Al Medina down there?
Well, I was coming back to the street. This is actually a pivotal moment in my career where I was coming back to the street, and I had an arrhythmia, right? And I was still gonna come back because I wanted to put my pride out there. I'm like, this is not gonna stop me. I'm going back.
So you were having a heart issue.
Yeah,
What was it?
it was AFib with an RVR
So-
at 210.
So your heart was not beating at a regular rhythm, and it was going super fast.
Super fast.
Which one of the side effects for that could be a stroke.
Yeah, it could be
all kinds of stuff. You could go into an arrest.
Yeah.
And what made you? How did you get diagnosed with that? Were you feeling shitty?
Well-
what was going on with you?
The funny thing is, I took a vacation because I was in training at that time. I took a vacation. I was going to go back on the street. And when I came back from my vacation, literally, we came back from Minnesota. I remember my daughter saying, hey, put the tape in. Let's not put our stuff away. Let's look at our GoPro footage on zip lining. So I was like, yeah, this could wait. We went there, and I started playing it, and I started feeling a little flutter in my chest. I didn't think none of it, that maybe he thought it was a PVC. And then it kept coming and going. And then I started getting a little lightheaded, started getting nauseous. And I was like, oh boy, something's going on. So I told my daughter, keep watching this. I'm going to walk around a little bit, drink some water. We're the worst patients, as you know.
Oh, 100%.
I was in denial. And all of a sudden I just said, I'm going to pass out. I don't want my kids to see this. I told my wife, I got to leave.
And
now.
you're in Minnesota.
No, I had just walked in the back of we just drove back 6-hour drive from Minnesota. And instead of unpacking, my daughter wanted to see the footage.
Oh, you had made it back home.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was an easy drive, nothing,
Yeah.
no accidents, no nothing. It was, nothing out of the ordinary. And I grabbed the keys, and my wife was on the phone. She didn't think I was serious. And I walked out, and I was in the car, and then she brought my kids with, and I'm like, what's going on here? So I was like, I got to go to the hospital, like right now. She goes, where do you want to go? I go, I'm going to Northwestern. So I was about to drive, but I worked at Community First for 6 years in the ER. I go, but there's always ambulances there. I want to just hook myself up to the monitor to see what's going on. So Dave Doherty, bless him. Dave's a good guy.
So you drove to a hospital that you knew CFD ambulances were going to be there.
Yes.
You found somebody you knew and said, hook me up to your monitor.
Well, I actually hooked myself up.
Yeah.
I told him, open the door, and open the back door. He opened it. I jumped in. They're still in the front compartment.
Did you tell Dave what was going on?
No.
You didn't? You just said...
No, I slapped. Well, we came back there, and he didn't know what was going on. And mind you, my vehicle is parked right in front of his ambulance, like a cop pulling over somebody in front of him. And I hooked all the leads up to me. I turned it on. I looked at it. Dave walks in the side door. He goes, "What's going on, Al?" And I go, "Hey, whose rhythm is that?" Talk about denial. And it's like 210. He looked at me. He goes, "That's yours." And I'm like, I took all the leads off, and I'm about to walk out the ambulance. He slams the door and locks it. And he goes, "You ain't going anywhere." He goes, "I've worked with you before. I know you. I know who you are. You do the same thing to me. I'll take you to the hospital. I'm not going to get you back in with your wife and family."
He wasn't going to take you to Community First, which you were there.
I didn't want to go there.
But he closed the door because he was taking you to where you wanted to go.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Well, we still had to get approval.
Yeah.
And we did. Now, mind you, we're in the back of the bay, and we left. I was stable. It was weird because when I would slow down to 120 on my rate, and I was fine. But then it would shoot up to 180s, 190s, and that's when I felt nauseous, felt like garbage. Yeah. And Chris Perry was a candidate at that time, and he's starting the IV.
And that's Dave's partner at the time.
At the time, yeah. So he's starting the IV on me, and he pulls out a 20 gauge.
How nerve-wracking is that?
Yeah, and he still got his shirt on.
Was Chris down there when you were in the academy?
I was one of his instructors. Yes.
Okay, so now here's Chris Perry, and one of his instructors had just walked in the back of his ambulance. He's a candidate, and now he's got to work on an instructor who's got AFib RVR.
Yeah,
and he's got to start an IV on him.
and he had the best line of the night. I say he starts the IV, and I go, "Are you really going with a 20 gauge?" And he goes, "Yeah, because you were one of the good instructors." So I was like, "Good answer." And put me on oxygen, drove me to the hospital, went to Northwestern. I felt fine when we got there, and they're like, "Hey, what's going on, Al?" You know, all the doctors and nurses, they knew who I was, and they go, "Is this a real run?" And I go, "Yeah, it's for me."
Right. Well, if this had been 5 years later, they'd been like, "Oh, this is a really good scenario."
Yeah, exactly.
Jesus, Al, this is you really lifelike on this. You
Yeah.
got your heart rate to look like AFib RVR.
Yeah, and they're like, "Hey, you know, this is what you got that rhythm generator. Where's that at?
Yeah.
Where's that mannequin at? That's good stuff." And they took me in, and they wanted to synchronize cardio over at me.
I was just gonna ask you. I'm like,
Yeah.
but you weren't altered. You
No.
kept your blood pressure and all
Yeah.
that. So that was the only thing keeping them from shocking you
Well, and me.
and you.
I told them.
Well, that would be part of the criteria that you would be altered. You know?
Right. Or hemodynamically unstable.
Right.
Yep. So they
No
want
blood pressure, no mental status.
Right.
You were perfectly fine except for what they were looking at the heart rate. And
Yeah.
it's a testament to treat the patient, not the rhythm in this instance, right?
Absolutely.
So did they push meds on you then?
They did. They gave me They gave me a bolus of Cardizem. It slowed it down. I was still in AVID, but it got rid of the RVR, which was fine. And then
Which for people who don't know what that means, and I'll have to look it up too, but rapid ventricular response.
correct.
That means like his heart, it's just not the little chambers in your heart going fast, it's the big chambers in his heart
Correct.
going fast.
Correct.
So it's a pretty significant
Yeah.
rhythm that you were in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and obviously mentally I was shocked. I wasn't a paramedic at that moment.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, the old crap moment, like what's going on here.
Yeah.
So they gave me Cardizem. I knew what their protocol was. I knew I was going to stay there. I'm a cardiac patient now. I knew I had to stay for observation. They checked everything. Is he obese? Is he a smoker? Is he? I didn't meet any of the criteria for that rhythm, and they gave me
Any family history?
No, my mother, God bless them. My mother and father. My dad just celebrated a birthday. He's 86, no heart disease. My mom is 84, no heart disease, and they checked my adrenaline glands to see if maybe something was firing. That was nothing there. Took a stress test the next morning. Didn't sleep well, but it's funny because my heart rate was still in 120s at 3 a.m. Felt fine though. And 6 o'clock in the morning, I went to go use the bathroom. I came back to my bed, and the nurse pulls the curtain back and says, "Guess what?" And I go, "I converted." And she goes, "How do you know?" Because I felt so relaxed.
Really?
And I started feeling my pulses. And I go, "This is normal." And then she comes in. I don't know who was more excited, her or me. And she goes, "How did you know?" She goes, "When did you convert?" I go, "I don't know, about 6 in the morning." She goes to the tele monitor and pulls it where I was in VFib and sees the conversion.
You went into VFib?
I mean, I'm sorry, AFib.
Okay. I was like, damn,
I,
Al.
I speak I speak that all the time, every week. I'm used to saying it.
Right.
It was AFib. She sees it convert into normal sinus at 62. I remember that as clear as day.
Just with the medicine.
Just with the medicine. So they told me I converted on my own. If I didn't convert by 7, they were gonna cardiovert me. That was the deal I had with the doctor.
Was there any talk of ablation for you or anything like
No.
that? Not even an option.
They were going to watch me for like 6 months to see where I was at. I was going to wear a halter just to see, if anything's going on. Ever since, that was in 2015, and I've been in normal sinus ever since.
Really?
Yeah.
You've never had an issue like...
I mean, I've had PVCs,
Sure.
PACs. Sometimes I'll have a day if I'm stressed out, I feel it, that I'll get like PVCs going.
Yeah.
But, once I just chill out and, relax, I get rid of them.
You're not on any daily medication or
I
anything?
am on a beta blocker, and that's been reduced significantly. So I'm on a benign dose now.
Yeah.
And hopefully in the next year, that's my next step, is to get off that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
thank God you made it home.
Yeah.
and,
It's weird how the timing.
Yeah. And God bless Dave Doherty
Yeah.
for standing up to you.
And the chief who approved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, who was working that day?
I don't know who was working that day, but I know it might have been. Was O'Connell still on?
Who, Jimmy? Back
Yeah.
then?
Yeah. It might have been O'Connell because I remember Dave saying the name,
Yeah.
and then I was like, oh, okay, we're in good hands. We'll get good answer. So, so going back to my transition, I took that vacation because I was gonna hit the street again.
Yeah.
And then that happened, and then obviously I was laid up, And in the meantime, Leslie was, if I could say this right, she was drafting me. You know, she had talked to Rebecca, Pete, and Michelle Knockman about, hey, you know, what do you think of Al coming over here? Blah blah blah. Had no clue this was going on, and then she asked me, hey, do you want to come over here? And I'm like, well, I'm going back to the street, you know. And I felt like I didn't want this to stop me, you know. So I was like, I'm going back to the street. This ain't gonna, you know, one of those things. And as I was laid up, it gave me time to think. And I started asking around, you know, and they're like, hey, man, if you got an opportunity to stay 40 hours, do it. You know, the streets are always going to be there. They're not going to change. And I think the one guy that finally, that the straw that broke the camel's back with my decision was, I seen Dempsey at Mariano's. And I'm buying food there. He's buying food. And we talk about it. And he goes, if I were you, Al, you know, your health comes first. If, you know, again, he said, he gave me that same line, streets are not going to go away. You come back next year, they're going to be there. You come back in 5 years, still going to be there. Yeah. There you go. And I sat down with my wife, had a heart to heart, and she's like, you know, do what you feel is comfortable. And I said yes to Leslie. And then I was there maybe 6 months before Pete left. So I'm at the Mark Division. I felt intimidated because I consider myself, you know, a street medic, not an educator. Right. Never looked at myself as an educator, and I think Leslie's seen something in me. And I was only with Pete in the sim lab for like 2 months, 2 to 3 months. And you know him, that guy's got so many things going on that I was trying to catch up with him that I'm like, I don't even know how to turn this mannequin on, let alone run a class. And when he got promoted, he was gone. It wasn't like, oh, well, he's got to stay to train Al. It was like, you got your promotion, you're out. And then Leslie said, you know, I'm gonna have you as the director of simulation. Is that okay? And she sat down with Patty Wood as well. And I go, man, there's other people that's qualified. You know, why me? And she goes, I believe you're the one that can take over and take care of this even when I'm gone. So I was like, okay. And that's how that happened. Went through a lot of tough times, teaching-wise, setting up classes, running mannequins.
Is there an actual class that you have to take to be able to educate in a sim lab?
We are. It's funny you say that. As we speak, we are putting out a class for our instructors now to have.
But when you came on, there was nothing like that.
There was nothing like that.
You were just kind of thrown into it, being like, "Hey, get this program afloat."
Yep. And I went through that mode of, hey, didn't Pete Lazar? And then sure. I said, all right, I got to give them a story.
You should have got a name tag that says, I am not Pete Lazar.
I did give them this, though. I go, do you guys know who Michael Jordan is? I don't know if I ever told you this. I go, and they're like, yeah, of course. Everyone knows Michael Jordan. And I say, all right, well, he's retired now. And they're like, yeah. I go, well, who took his place? And they're like, no one did. And I go, well, there was 12-man rosters in the NBA. There was 11 when he left. They had to fill the spot. And they're like, we don't know. And I go, well, I'm that guy. I go, you know, no one could replace Jordan. No one could replace Pete. And it was actually, the player is, for you guys, for trivia, it was Pete Myers.
Was it Pete Myers?
Yeah.
Nice.
It was Pete Myers.
All right.
Yep.
All right, Pete.
So I'm that Pete. I'm not the Pete Lazaro, but I'm Pete Myers.
Thanks for being here, Al. Thanks for dropping off those forms for me. Anything like you see the candidates come see you at some point in their academy, every single one of them. Any advice for these guys who are coming on now? I know there's a class in there right now.
They just graduated.
Well, they got firefighters in there now.
Oh, they just started. Yep.
But the medics literally got done on Friday. Mm-hmm. Or Thursday.
They graduated Friday.
They got done Thursday, graduated Friday, and they'll be starting their first day Sunday, right?
Correct.
So any advice? Oh, you know what? There was one thing that I remember. It's funny that what sticks in your mind, but you were talking to Pete when you were talking about going down to the sim lab, and Pete gave you a piece of advice about why you should do it, because you were like, I want to like teach other people and stuff like that, and Pete said something to you. I don't know if you remember, but you told me, Pete said, if you want, you can help more people down here in this position than you can like just teaching a candidate who comes and rides with you.
Absolutely.
Or teaching a brand new partner. He's like, you can reach more people.
Absolutely.
Is that a story I'm remembering correctly?
He said that, and yes. And also he said, make it yours. Make it yours. Don't be me. Don't try to, mimic him or copy him, because there's only one Pete, right? And there's going to be one Al. But yeah, you're absolutely right. You can reach candidates, and I get blamed for giving my phone number out too much to candidates too. Why not? A candidate doesn't mean nothing to me. Not when I first came down there as an instructor. It's actually swayed a lot different. I actually love the candidate. I really do. I want them to succeed, number one, and I want them to go out there to be two things: competent and confident. Once they do that, I got, before I came here, I got 3 text messages, 2 from my formal candidates and 1 from now, and asking for advice. And I told them, my number's there for that reason. I take the patch off. It doesn't mean nothing. This is a heart to heart. It doesn't go anywhere. Whatever you need, I'll help you.
From personal experience, can attest to the fact that, and you know this for a fact because I do it all the time. I'll call you. I'll have a run or I'll have something, and I'll call you and be like, hey, Al, did something change here? Or I just had this.
Yeah.
What's give me what the actual textbook way to do this is. Walk me through this. I've done that to you pretty much since I hit the street, right?
Yeah, and I love it because it's, the ones that not only call me or call someone else, those are the good medics. Those are the ones that hide it. You're only going to keep digging a bigger hole for yourself, and you got to reach out. I always say that the sim lab is not mine. The sim lab is the department. It's the members. You got to come down there. Every candidate and every promotion, whether you're commander or AC, I always said, when you want to come down here and you feel like you're not comfortable with something, call me up, and if I'm open, I'll give you a day when you're off, and we'll go over whatever you need. No one has to know.
Yeah, I mean, I want people, if you're listening to this, and especially if you work for our department, if you have trouble with anything, you'll bring them down. You could even bring them down on duty sometimes if you can, swing it. And let's say, like, it was a situation that I had where I called down. I was like, hey, I could not intubate this child for nothing. I got brought down, and they're like, walk me through this. Show me the equipment you use. What issues were you having? What angle were you? It was very informal. It was just, hey, let's get to the root of the problem.
Yeah.
Let's see what hung you up. Super, super informal. All you wanted to do was get the education in, and if there was something that needed to be changed or fixed or whatever, that's a great place to figure that out.
Yeah.
But don't be afraid to reach out to you, man. Like you said, that you're there for these guys, right?
I'm there for the 20-year member, for the candidate, for the 1 day. I'm there. I'll never, put anybody down. Like I said, the instructor from day one to the instructor that I am today, there's a lot of people out there that played a role, though, where I'm at. Like I said, the Petes, the Leslies, Patty Wood, even Margie Bombin, my first partner, she had me doing the journal the first day. She had me doing the tough book the first day.
Yeah.
She had me doing inventory the first day. And I thought that was normal. But then I go to other ambulances and I'm like, oh, okay. But again, you used all the tools on that ambulance. We used all the tools.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is good. So yeah, there was a lot of people that played a role to where I'm at today.
Well, thanks for being on, buddy.
Thank
you
you.
and I go way back. We've been on at the academy. We've been on the bikes together. You're kind of screwing me this year by not. So for those of you listening, Al's been one of the instructors down at the bike team, and he's chose to be with the FBI instead of his MMRT brothers, but that's all right. We'll work around you.
Yeah. I promise it won't happen again. I am a little bummed about that. A lot of bummed, I should say.
You had a good streak there, man. How many years straight doing that detail with us?
Well, I've been on the bike team since 2007.
Yeah.
And we were 40 hours. But with you, we've been right before Danny left. Right before Danny left, when he handed it over to you, that was, 4 or 5 years ago? easily. You know, we were at the Quinn, we were at the high school.
We've changed venues,
Yeah.
but
And it's gotten better because of you, to be honest. And
thanks, buddy.
it has. It's gotten better. I always follow your lead. I mean, I know you ask me for advice, but I always follow your lead because I know what you want this to be.
yeah, my goal for the bike team is the same as your goal with the sim lab. I just want these guys to be prepared and be good.
Yeah.
You know, and have that confidence that they can make a run on that bike, and when they get there, they're going to kick ass. You know, all these guys on the bike team are awesome.
Good. Yeah,
You
the
know?
same the guys that you had, those guys, it's game on with them. It's good.
Yeah, they're like hungry animals looking for, looking for victims to save. You know, that these guys are awesome. I love it. Well, thanks again, Al. Appreciate it. And if anybody wants to reach out to you, can they reach you somewhere?
Yeah, they can email me or call me.
All right. What's your email?
My
Why don't you give me your city email? That
All right,
way.
albert.medina@cityofchicago.org. And even if you get a number, I guarantee you there's over 600 minutes that have my number. Easily. That's easily.
And if you're a department listening and you want to get in contact with Al and talk about training up some of your guys, or maybe come schedule a visit at the Sim Lab and see what kind of program they're running down there, reach out to that email, and I'm sure you're going to get Al getting back in contact with you real soon. So again, Chicago's Bravest Stories. This was Roll Call with Al Medina. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you.
Yep. Be safe.
Bye.
This has been a Fire and Iron Media production. You have something to say, people want to listen. How's that, Daddy?
The opinions and views are that of Chicago's Bravest Stories and their guests. They do not necessarily reflect the views of any municipal governments, fire protection districts, fire departments, EMS, or law enforcement organizations.